Off the top, Stormy takes the stand. Former President Donald Trump faces his biggest test yet, watching adult film stars Stormy Daniels testify about their one-time sexual encounter. Trump is under a gag order that blocks him from making public comments about witnesses in the case, including Daniels. And Trump seems to be out of chances after the judge held him in criminal contempt for the 10th time this week, warning Trump that he wouldn't hesitate to put the former president behind bars if it's necessary. And so far, the threats seem to be working.
And nevertheless, we have a horrible gag order that shouldn't be allowed. Has never been on. Nothing like this has ever happened. What you're witnessing is a first. Their objective, of course, was to humiliate and smear Trump with a gossipy tale of sex that had nothing to do with the criminal charges at issue. Had nothing to do with it. Everything you've been watching has nothing to do with the case.
He seems to be sticking to the script there. No mention of Daniels, who spent hours testifying, including about having sex with Trump during a celebrity golf tournament in 2006. And Daniels gave explicit details, including the fact that Trump did not use protection, nor did he ever tell her to keep it confidential. Daniels said she asked Trump about his wife Melania during their encounter. She says Trump showed her a picture and said not to worry because they no longer sleep in the same bedroom. Daniels also confirmed prior testimony that there was little interest in buying her story before that Access Hollywood tape was released just 1 month before the 2016 election. And that's part of prosecutors' theory, that the campaign was interested in buying and burying stories about other women after that tape came out. And the level of detail that Stormy Daniels included on the stand actually became a problem. Not only did the judge scold the prosecution, but Trump's team made a move for a mistrial. What's a mistrial? It happens when a judge determines that something has gone so wrong that the defendant can't have a fair trial, like juror misconduct or misbehaving attorneys. A judge can also call a mistrial when there's a hung jury. Now, Trump's defense team argued that Daniels' testimony went so far beyond the questions asked and what's relevant to a falsified business records case that it taints the jury. The motion also creates a record in case Trump gets convicted, and then his team appeals, arguing that the jury couldn't have been fair after hearing Daniels' testimony. And Judge Juan Marchand denied the motion for a mistrial, saying that there were guardrails that were in place to prevent the jury from considering improper evidence. He said he would give the jury a special instruction about considering some of what she said on the stand.
Even though Stormy Daniels might have said more than was agreed upon, or we have to look at the details of exactly what she said and what went kind of outside the bounds of what is allowed. But this is something judges say all the time, which is I can instruct the jury to disregard something they heard. And even though the jury will never forget it, they're not supposed to consider it when they go back to determine their verdict.
Now, Trump's defense team got a chance to cross-examine Daniels, and they focused on three things. First, Daniels' motivation for telling her story. The defense tried to suggest that Daniels wanted Trump to go to jail so she could actually get out of paying Trump hundreds of thousands of dollars in court-ordered legal fees after her unsuccessful defamation suit. Also, that she just wanted to extort him. Also, inconsistencies in her story. The defense homed in on numerous inconsistencies in how Daniels told the story after her affair with Trump over the years and tried to exploit them so that the jury would be less inclined to believe her now. Also, tried to make her less relatable. Daniels said a number of things that could have been perceived as pretty relatable while on the stand, including at one point uttering how hungry she was while the lawyers kept arguing when she was sitting there on the witness stand. Now, you never know for sure how a witness is playing, but the defense tried to use her background in adult film, her interest in money, and defensive tweets to paint a negative picture. Meantime, Trump had a pretty good week in his other criminal cases. Florida federal judge Eileen Cannon, a Trump appointee, postponed the classified documents trial indefinitely. Trump is facing criminal charges for the unauthorized retention of national defense information. He was scheduled to go to trial later this month, although the court watchers expected some delay there. But Cannon canceled the trial date, citing numerous evidentiary hurdles involving the classified information, and she didn't set a new one.
So we're talking about just adding significant delay, whereas judges with more experience in these matters would have moved them more quickly. I'd say there's also a number of motions that she could have ruled on based on the papers, but instead has scheduled hearings and scheduled those hearings far out after the briefing has been completed.
And down in Georgia, the state's appeals court agreed to reopen the issue of whether Fani Willis should remain at the helm, prosecuting Trump for interfering in the state's 2016 election. The trial judge, Scott McAfee, ruled that either Willis or her former romantic interest in handpicked top prosecutor Nathan Wade had to step down after lawyers argued that their prior relationship created a conflict of interest. Now, Wade resigned right after that order came out. Willis stayed on, and now the appeals court is going to decide if that's acceptable. But the decision to take up the appeal almost certainly means the trial is going to get delayed until 2025 at the earliest.
It guarantees that the only case that's going to trial out of these three criminal cases, the documents case, the Fani Willis case, January 6th case, is ultimately the case that's now before the judge and jury in New York State.
Now, look, it's still possible that the January 6th case could go to trial close to, if not during, the November election. But we'll have to wait and see what the Supreme Court says about presidential immunity before that can happen. And that decision could come as late as the end of June.